No. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Good morning. Well, thanks for that warm welcome. So,
Morning, Ray.
all right, good morning. I got one or two friends in this room. I don't know. So, well, let's get it out of the way. Happy Halloween. And I think we need to recognize Hector and Tobe for their being so brave. Come on, man, stand up. Let everyone talk. Come on. You know, these are the bravest men in the room. I don't even want to ask where you found that, Hector. But anyway, well, welcome. I'd call the order to the October 31st, if you don't know already, the meeting of the Kansas Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority. And thank you for being here. And we look forward to our day's reports and an effort to hear more from our staff on some of the things they've been involved in. So I'd like to ask if there are any additions or corrections to our agenda. You have that from this morning. Anything, any additions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, September 26th, 2024 meeting. Ask if there's any changes to the minutes. And if not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Dave's, do we have a second? Okay. Any opposed? All right, minutes have been approved.
And actually, Chair Frederick, we do not have a quorum. We need one more member to have a quorum to vote.
We're taking members today, so. Well, I think we have some people that are out, you know. So never mind on that vote. It never happened. So anyway, introductions though, we have any introductions from those in attendance? Yes,
Good morning.
good morning.
It is my pleasure to introduce Jamie Whitmore, our brand new Associate Director for Career Technical Education on the Perkins team.
Welcome.
I'm,
Jamie, you want to say a few words? Oh.
she wrote me her introduction, so I will share that. Jamie has been with the board office for 7 years, and she previously worked with the Student Financial Aid Unit. Her primary role was assisting students with the application process and coaching them on the terms of the scholarships, as well as serving as a go-between for the student and the institution. She has experience managing state scholarship funds and the reporting that goes with all of that. She's excited to be part of the CTE team and learn the many ins and outs of the Perkins grants. In particular, she's excited to visit the colleges and get to see how the funds that we award here have direct impact on the students' lives. She's also looking forward to presenting trainings to college staff, so maybe she'll be a little bit, braver next time because she has a bachelor's degree in theater and film from KU. Though she opted not to go into the biz after the graduation, she still enjoys theater and catches local performances when she can. She lives near Lawrence with her husband, 2 children, and 2 dogs. So take a note, dog person. In her spare time, if there's such a thing with 2 little kids, she's a semi-professional tie-dye artist. It's not a hobby, a little bit more than a hobby, but not enough for a business. And it satisfies her need to sing along to the radio while creating art for others. So welcome, Jamie.
Once again, let's welcome Jamie. Thank you so much. All right, on the chair's report, I have one item. I had the opportunity to attend the Workforce Innovation Conference October 1st and 2nd in Salina. Congratulations, Mike, in April. Maybe we'll hear more a little later. You don't even remember being there, do you? Well, it was a great event, well attended, and certainly gave an opportunity for many sectors in that type of work and the workforce to come together and to see and meet each other. There's special emphasis seemed to on the workshops about internships and apprenticeships, which is a very important part for those that that are up and coming. Gives them a foot in the door and also firsthand experience, which is so important often before they enter the workforce. So it was good. I particularly enjoyed the speaker on second chances. Was it Ty, his name? This gentleman spoke to business and industry about giving individuals that may have coming out of prison, felons, that in their background, and they're just looking for an opportunity, someone to say, okay, understand, what have you done lately? What is it that's caused you to be who you are today as you sit here in my office? Good question to ask individuals. And, but certainly, I was very interested in that. We, in our family business, we gave a number of individuals that came out of prison second chances. So firm believer in that. Lives get changed. And too often, businesses are hesitant to do that. But anyway, good, very good topic and a good event. So thank you, Mike, to you, April, and all those involved. So, okay, any TA members have a report on their activities they'd like to make? Yeah, Natalie?
I just wanted to say, we passed out a cluster handbook for 25-26. We reviewed 7 clusters last year, and we're reviewing this year transportation, human services, and marketing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dave?
Just an information item that I actually didn't attend, but Highland has a new president, Dr. Vince Bowie, was at Independence, and they had inaugurations. That's our last meeting in Highland. Seth was there representing the community colleges. I think there's some people from the board office and around the state. Very good event. I happen to be in Utah. So anyway, I don't know if he's been to a TEA meeting when he was at Independence. If not, I'll see if I can twist his arm and get him here so you can at least see who he is.
Please do. Tell him we have chocolate from time to time, so maybe that'll get him here, whatever it takes. All right, who else? Anyone else? Okay, we're going to backtrack.
We can backtrack.
We're going to backtrack. We now have a quorum. I understand Marquez is on Zoom with us, so does everyone remember about the minutes? Do I have to say that again? Is there a motion? Yeah, that we got a second. Okay. Is there anyone that opposes approving the minutes? All right. If not, minutes have been approved. So, all right, we're going to move on. Okay, I want to call on Vice President April White for an update on workforce development.
Thank you. And interesting fact, Vince and I were at Washburn University at the same time and worked together at the mall. So we've known each other for a long time. Seth and I have also started in this whole education game together. So a lot of familiarity with some of the presidents. But as you said, we did have our workforce innovation conference. Prior to that, we did have 2 pre-sessions. So one was on AOK and team teaching. The other was Tobe. He had an MOA training on civil rights compliance. So quite a few attendees were there. Associate Wood also traveled to Cowley and Hutchinson Community College to deliver some training to faculty and administration this past month. Director Brown, Member Clark, and myself were at the Advanced CTE Conference in Arizona a week ago, looking at the new framework, cluster framework. So if you are not aware, at the federal level, they did change the cluster. So the handbook that KSD just gave you, there will be some changes to that moving forward next year. But we also learned the impact we're going to have on our CAR report. So how we report information to the federal government is going to change. So that is a big thing. As for good news, adult ed, as of today, we are up 27% from this time last year. So we are moving forward with helping individuals in the state, and the healthcare registration, or the virtual healthcare day, the registration is open. So if you have students who are interested, please get registered, or if you guys are interested in registering for that, it is open. Final thing for the presidents, just so you guys are aware, today is the last day for FY26 Excel and CTE fees. So that data collection will close today, close of business, close at 5, and then we will bring those forward to the TEA December, January for a vote. I would stand for questions.
Any questions, comments? Okay, if not, we'll move on to our agenda, and up next is report from our community colleges. So President Seth Carter of Colby, you're up.
Good morning. How is everyone? You know, Chair Frederick said earlier he didn't get a very warm reception. That's kind of how I feel about that too. So I'm not sure, but my name is Seth Carter. I am the president at Colby Community College. I do represent the Association of Community Colleges. We did a little bit different on our report. I think I told you all that from the onset, that we would be focusing on the strategic plan from the Kansas Board of Regents. So you will see that we have divided these into separate pillars. And each month, 6 colleges will report out. So everyone will be focused the same amount of times, but then you'll get to see the different ways that we're implementing and living these strategies. So fun fact before I get started, I don't know if you're all aware of this, Harvard has an unofficial slogan that they are the Colby Community College of the Ivy League sector. I didn't make that up. That's just what they reported to me. So we'll start first with the affordability aspect at Colby Community College. We implemented the Colby Commitment Scholarship, and what that does, it provides students that are on free or reduced lunches the ability to attend Colby Community College as juniors or seniors at no expense to them. This is funded through interest income, so there are no public monies that are utilized within this. We also have reduced that tuition rate to $50 a credit hour for anyone in the 14 county service area, and it is only to the 14 county service area. And those that are in Thomas County who are local taxpayers, those students pay $0 to attend that. So that is an initiative that we implemented last spring. And I'm glad to announce, as of this morning, since I've been sitting here, we did renew the scholarship as well. So it'll go through the spring of 2026. Focusing on the post-secondary side of access, we then went through and implemented the 60 for 60. Colby Community College just celebrated our 60th anniversary. For that, we had a goal of announcing 60 new endowed scholarships. Through the silent portion of the campaign, we've now hit 70. And I do believe as of next month, we'll be a little bit over 90. So it's really gone incredibly well. And that does focus on the post-secondary elements. So really trying to go through and encompass all those different things, secondary to post-secondary, making sure students have access to the necessary education that we have available. Again, going back to the Harvard model, Colby Community College has experienced unparalleled levels of success. We have had the highest graduation rate amongst the community colleges 6 out of the last 9 years. For those of you that are keeping score, that would be like the Chiefs going to the AFC Championship 9 years consecutively. The year we didn't finish number 1, we were number 2, number 3, and number 4. So I think Coach Reed would be proud of the fact that we pulled down 6 Super Bowls. But for those of us that are 49ers fan, that stings. That does. Lifelong fan. We've also had the highest full-time retention rate 4 out of the last 5 years. The years we were not number 1, we were number 2. Like my 49ers. We have also had, our nursing program had the highest wage placement amongst any program in the state of Kansas, with an average starting salary of $82,000 a year. Finally, the last update I got right before I finalized this report, Colby Community College's veterinary nursing program was rated the #1 online veterinary nursing program amongst all community colleges in the nation. So kind of a cool deal, We'll go to a less exciting school in Dodge City Community College. Harold, I hope you're watching. In spring of 2024, Dodge City Community College's financial aid office began a process of standardizing scholarship applications. This included institutional scholarships as well as those awarded from the DC3 Foundation. Because the new standardized and simplified process, approximately 155 DC3 students were awarded nearly $237,000 in scholarships to help pay for higher education. Under the access portion, after a 10-year absence, DC3 is returning to a structured and comprehensive schedule for night classes after the DC3 After 5 initiative. Designed to offer classes during the evening hours, the expanded schedule makes education accessible to non-traditional students who may be working, parenting, or managing other responsibilities during the day. Beginning in the spring of 2025, which opens October 28th, which will include required courses needed for most degrees, such as English, government, history, math, and speech. In terms of success, in 2023-2024 academic year, DC3 awarded a total of 206 associate degrees, 387 certificates, which includes certificates of completion. Since the 2019-20 academic year, the number of degrees awarded by DC3 has increased by 14%, and the number of certificates awarded have increased by 103% respectively. In addition, approximately 75% of DC3 graduates from 2021 to 2023 earned sustainable wages. A sustainable wage is defined as an annual wage of at least $31,335. This was a sizable improvement of the 21 to 42% of the 2019 to 2021 graduates. Additionally, graduates reported earning an average of $28,000 in 2018, 2019, and $43,000 in 2022, 2023. So a large jump there. Moving on to Fort Scott Community College. Between the academic years of 2019 to 2013, Fort Scott Community College has had a 0% increase in tuition rate for in-district, non-resident, international, and online students, providing a consistent, affordable tuition option for students. Bourbon County students have the opportunity to apply for the Bourbon County tuition waiver, which will waive the cost of all tuition for Bourbon County residents. Access during the 2023-2024 academic year, Fort Scott Community College's foundation gave $822,000 in endowed scholarships to students. So far, this year, 388 students have been impacted by additional scholarships through the Fort Scott Community College Foundation. Under the success portion of it, the Fort Scott Community College Nursing Program has a 93.33% pass rate for first-time takers on the NCLEX since January 1 of 2024. Excel and CTE credits were up over 37% from 2023 to 2024 academic year at outreach locations where Fort Scott Community College facilitates career and technical education curriculum and instruction to high school students in rural areas. President Ruda at Garden City was gracious enough to grace us with his presence today. He didn't, this is going to be the low light of the portion, so I'm sorry for that, but he did inform me he's never seen me anything other than a blue suit. So I did have to wear gray for him today, but Garden City Community College continues to work to reduce barriers to key demographics that struggle to access higher education because of financial barriers. For fall of 2024, the college launched the Buster Boost initiative, reducing tuition and student fees for high school students seeking a jumpstart on their college careers. The college also launched the Buster Finish Line Scholarship, designed to help students who are short 12 or fewer credit hours to complete their associate's degree. The scholarship eliminates tuition costs for students to complete their associate's degree. Also, at Garden City, thanks to the partnership with Cengage, the vast majority of their textbooks are all included in the cost of tuition and fees for students embedded within the learning management system, greatly reducing the cost of attendance for students. Under the access portion, over the last couple of years, Garden City has worked on increasing opportunities for bachelor's degree completion for students who do not wish to leave Southwest Kansas. These partnerships exist with specific programs offered in a face-to-face format and hybrid through Fort Hays State University and Newman University. They continue to explore more programmatic opportunities as well. Garden City is also focused on ensuring that it delivers on its promises to transfer students. One example is focused on increasing the number of dual advising partnerships within the four-year universities across the state to minimize any level of credit hour loss during the transfer process, as well as enhancing reverse transfer partnerships to increase student completion. Garden City has also implemented new strategies to increase scholarships and financial packages available to students. Garden City has launched the Presidential Scholarship Initiative, designed to increase 50 new endowed scholarships. Additionally, the college has instituted the Alumni Scholarship Incentive Program that provides scholarship opportunities to children of Garden City Community College alumnus. To assist with the alumni scholarship funding, GCC has initiated the state license plate program with a GCC Distinguished Kansas plate with $25 for each plate being sold directed back to the state alumni scholarship. Garden City Community College is the first community college in the state of Kansas to accomplish this feat. Hate to give Ryan credit for that. It's pretty cool. We looked into it, but didn't get it done. Garden City's 2023-2024 associate degree in nursing and practical nursing programs both had a 100% first-time NCLEX pass rate. Elsewhere, most recent data shows Garden City's Perkins-funded programs had a 97% job placement or further advanced training. For the second year in a row, Garden City is #1 community college in the state for highest average credit hours transferred successfully to a four-year Regents University at 56.3 credit hours, showing the college's continued dedication to helping transfer students. Highland Community College. The Highland Community College Board of Trustees approved a new tuition and fee rate of $65 per credit hour for Kansas high school students at their March meeting. The reduced rate is a significant cost savings for students compared to the previous $147 per credit hour rate. The lower rate applies to high school students taking in-person classes on Highlands campus at partner schools or through Highland Community College's online program. Highland Community College's foundation awarded 26 scholarships to students studying technical programs at the college this year. This new effort, which is focused on establishing 50 new endowed scholarships for technical programs, helps post-secondary students interested in technical fields access education. Under the success portion, for the second year in a row, Highland Community College's Technical Center's practical nursing students achieved a remarkable 100% first-time pass rate on the NCLEX PN assessment for licensure. As licensed practical nurses, as of December 2023, the national pass rate for first-time student takers on the NCLEX PN, as reported by the National Council of State Board of Nursing, is just over 86%. Stay with me, I have one more. Hutchinson Community College. To enhance program-to-program articulation, 36 plus new articulation 2+2 agreements are highlighted on Hutchinson's Transferring in Kansas webpage, developed to provide guidance for students planning to transfer after attending Hutchinson Community College. In addition to articulation agreements, the site links updated information on system-wide transfer courses in the Kansas Transfer Portal. The system-wide general education framework, math pathways, reverse transfer, and transfer equivalency guides for the Kansas colleges and universities. In an effort to promote online graduation, Hutchinson Community College provides the college courses in all high schools within their service area. To further enhance affordability, the Step Ahead program exists for Kansas high school graduates. Kansas high school students who take classes from Hutchinson Community College while in high school that earn a C or higher and attend Hutchinson Community College in a full-time format in the fall or the spring are directly reimbursed for their tuition they paid while in high school. It is an opportunity for students to earn credit for 2 courses for the price of 1. Over the last academic year, $311,000 was provided to service area students through this remarkable initiative. Access. Over the last 2 years, 318 course sections have been utilized in either an OER, which stands for Open Educational Resource, or no textbook format. This has impacted 5,724 students and saved students over $570,000 in textbook fees. Further, in the fall of 2024, Hutchinson Community College implemented the Cengage Unlimited ebook platform to provide those courses that are not available in an OER or notebook format for 88 course sections, and this positively affected 913 students. In the high schools in Hutchinson Community College, this semester, 78 class sections and 875 unduplicated students have access to free textbooks. The OER No Textbook Initiative has reduced student costs to help reduce the cost of higher education. To further enhance access to additional courses, the Small Business Accounting, Spreadsheet, and Spreadsheet Management are being offered to Hutchinson Correctional Facility residents, and 15 new online courses in a variety of disciplines have also been added to the course schedule. Utilizing ideas from Complete College America, Hutchinson Community College is implementing Ed Insights, a student persistence and retention tool to engage students early, proactively, and helping guide them to staff and resources that will help them succeed. A retention coordinator is being hired and an early alert system has been implemented. Hutchinson Community College is also an early adopter of the math pathways, currently in the full implementation phase of offering the 3 pathway courses with and without co-remediation. Our experience to date will be shared at the next Math Pathways Executive Implementation Team meeting. And finally, success. Hutchinson Community College's annual Career Connections Job Fair recently hosted 193 area employers to connect students and employers. With 55% of Hutchinson Community College graduates completing a CTE program, students are equipped to directly enter the workforce. The total number of degrees and certificates earned during the 2023-2024 academic calendar year was up 5.2% higher than last year, led primarily by the increase in short-term technical certificates. In the 2023-2024 year, 72% of technical graduates who earned an associate's degree, certificate, or completed a short-term program are earning over $31,000 annually, with an average wage of nearly $50,000. High job placement rates and programs from nursing to fire science to electrical engineering technicians show earnings in the upper 60s. That is our full report. I stand for any questions or concerns as presented.
Okay, any questions, comments?
No 49ers fans up there, I see. Yes, sir. Member Humphrey.
I'm a 49er fan.
God bless you.
Yeah, I have one question, Seth. There was quite a reduction in credit hours at Highland Community College from like about 50%, it looked like. How were they able to do that?
So when is your question that they experienced a reduction in overall credit hours, or
Just, it's a big jump. I mean, what was the big change that made the difference?
honestly, sir, I don't know the answer to that, so I apologize because President Bowie, all I got is the report on that one, but I know they're implementing several different initiatives to go through and help combat the cost of higher education, but I don't know specifics of it, so I don't want to give you a false pretense.
Thanks.
Sir.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn our attention to the technical college and ask Jim Gannett to come up, president of Manhattan Area Technical College. Welcome, Jim.
Morning. I had a coat like Hector's once, but a local museum said their dinosaur exhibit ran away, so. Much like my colleague Seth reported, tech colleges are off and running. So you've got the report. I'll go through most of it with you. Salina Tech, big enrollment increase. Bigger one being planned as they get their new buildings up, because as many of us are feeling, its capacity, strained capacity with building and classrooms and lab space in particular for technical education. They're expecting the walls and roofs to be enclosed on the new industrial maintenance building by November 15th. They are working with City of Salina to provide training for police officers. They reduced tuition rates by 47% for high school students and have waived institutional fees to help go towards the family access and affordability pillar in the region's strategic plan. They've maintained no application fee cost at all since 2017, 2018. They've worked with a lot of partners in their region on economic development, especially related to industrial maintenance and automation. They're doing more into food and advanced manufacturing industries in their area. And their advisory committees are stepping up and really working well with the college and the programs to provide more effective training to the business and industry in that community. Flint Hills Tech, they've been using the Rathke Family Scholarships to cover all the cost of tools for students in automotive technology. Their industrial engineering technology program is delivering courses in Spanish as well as English. The early childhood education program in its second year of operation tripled in enrollment. And again, they had a great enrollment increase, both headcount and FTE. They have hosted a job fair where they're partnered with Kansas Works and the Emporia Chamber to support the Michelin workers who are being affected by a reduction in force. And their CDL program is working very well with their corporate partners such as Frito-Lay, Evco, and Norfolk Iron and Metal. Washburn Tech, we should have Scott come up and give this. He'd give it better than I do. Joint meeting with all the school districts who have students going to Washburn. They're working on a build out of the second floor of the East Campus to expand capacity. And there's a lot more that I didn't get put into this report that will be in the November report from Scott. He's also been very busy working with a lot of business and industries in the Topeka area to improve those partnerships and engagements. They're doing a lot more looking at apprenticeships and internships. Fort Hays State at Northwest Tech, as I call it. Um, They're working harder to initiate more apprenticeship and work-based learning programs in their area. They have their first recognized state apprenticeship going on and are learning to work with that unit of the State Department of Commerce. They've partnered with the Northwest Kansas Innovation Center to provide post-graduation apprenticeship opportunities with some of their local employers. The Innovation Center has invested $200,000 to fund 6-month full-time postgraduate apprenticeships for 10 of their students in the application development program. That's $20,000 per student for those positions. They're serving as a pass-through entity to provide funding to area businesses doing the intermediary work. They're working on the local micro internship program through the regents. And at Fort Hays State in Beloit and Hayes, they've got a brand new semi-truck for their CDL program, new brake equipment for the welding program, virtual reality simulators for nursing. And they got funding for that from a community improvement federal grant in the amount of $740,000. They're adding a construction site management degree in conjunction with the university for students who complete the 1-year construction tech certificate. Then they can take the construction management courses with university and reverse transfer back to North Central to get the associate degree. And then they're launching a power sports program, which I think they borrowed from Ben at Northwest Tech. Manhattan Tech, we had our first ever advisory committee dinner of all of our program advisory committees and built programs, and it was well attended, good feedback, so we'll start doing that every fall. Our contractor for the new building, BHS, is already using our space for training. We're piloting with them, and they're working to bring other contractors on site to do more of their training through us in that building, which is what we love. We're a partner on the new childcare business initiative, Flint Hills Business Accelerator project in Manhattan. If you haven't heard about this, this was put together by 3 mothers who need daycare. And they put together an incubator model, an accelerator model, which the Community Foundation, Ascension Via Christi, who's providing the land, Manhattan Tech is providing the curriculum support. They broke ground for this center on October 9th. It's right in front of Via Christi, right across the street from the football stadium. And it will also have a community accelerator where both Manhattan Tech, Kansas Works, and a local clinic will be providing services to clients, whether they're using the child care center or just people that need assistance. So it will basically become kind of another access point for services in Manhattan. An interesting thing, and I know there were several community colleges that received this too, but Ben and I were surprised. We got emails from the U.S. Department of Education. They have a Raise the Bar initiative, first time they've done this. And there were 100 two-year colleges in their two-year college report that qualified for recognition in this Raise the Bar. And Ben and I, our institutions were the 2 tech colleges, and is for success on meeting metrics related to enrolling low-income students and students of color, and helping those students graduate successfully and either transfer or enter employment with an enhanced opportunity for upward mobility. So that was kind of unique. Fort Riley staff released information that we were going to have a couple of welding pilot sections on Fort Riley in November. Without telling us, they released the information and those spots filled within 48 hours, which is good. And I celebrated my 68th birthday, October 15th, with our regular site visit from the Higher Learning Commission. Yes! And it went very well. Very proud of our folks. And I got a few years left in me. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions, Jim, comments? Well, happy birthday. We're glad you've made it this far at least. So that's
I got 75 to go.
okay. See you then. All right, we'll move on our agenda to our consent agenda. And I would ask if there is a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I approve items A and B, or make a motion to approve items A and B on the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Deborah? All right, Robin, do you want to call roll? Yes.
Member Hess, could you say your vote, please?
Right. So motion passed. All right, thank you. Okay, we're gonna call on Sharman. Come up and we're gonna discuss the buckets today.
Going to discuss the buckets again. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, members, the TEA. So in the first section of your discussion agenda, you have the issue paper regarding the update to the course bucket review that we started last year. And today we're reviewing round 2 of the project. So very briefly, you'll recall last year we talked about the pharmacology courses, and those were presented to the TEA after we investigated the specific program or field of study, if you will, for each course as it was assigned by each institution in the data system. So as we worked through that process, we realized that courses like practicums, internships, and clinicals, we're going to take some more time to review due to the overlap in usage of those course types by our institutions. So today, we're presenting the results of that additional review. We were also looking at additional topic-specific buckets that were identified last year instead of being program-specific. And those are listed there at the bottom of page 26. Again, practicums, internships, measurement, blueprint. So there's a difference between a blueprint course for construction and a blueprint course for welding. So we want to take those courses and put them in the program specific bucket where they're actually used. So then starting on page 28 of your packet, you have the list of courses that we reviewed, and you're going to see for each one of these, working left to right for each one, you'll see the institution name, the course ID, the course title, credit hours, and then the current bucket assignment, as well as the recommended bucket assignment. And so we highlighted all of the courses as well. Yellow highlights signify a course that after we've done that investigation, the recommendation is to move that course to the occupationally specific program bucket that is listed in that far right column. I want to emphasize that no courses are being recommended to move from tiered to non-tiered status. We are only recommending to move courses within tiered status. We do have blue highlights for 2 courses that we're actually recommending that they move from non-tiered to tiered status to remain consistent with the other like courses in the system. And then in green throughout the rest of this report, you'll see courses where we are recommending that the course remain in the current bucket as it is assigned and not actually change. Approximately 40% of all the courses were reviewed. Institutions continue to add new courses, so that number is constantly inching up. So I missed it by just a little bit. We're going to fix that this year, and we're going to review the rest of the 60%. All of those courses will be brought to the TEA with recommendations for reassignment if we need to. We discussed this during the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and during that discussion, the technical and community colleges also voiced their support for this process, realizing that ultimately some courses may calculate at a lower funding level, but the accuracy of the reporting and the calculation is the priority for everyone. And our recommendation then would be to reassign the attached list of courses into program-specific buckets for the academic year 2024 funding calculations. And I would stand for questions.
Okay, a lot of information, material, and a tremendous amount of work on the part.
And a piece of chocolate will help. Right? Oh, thank you.
Questions, comments, follow-up from even our committee meeting, perhaps? Yes, Seth?
Thank you, Chair Frederick. Can you all hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
The only question I would have, has there been any analysis of the fiscal impact on these? Has there been any projections to go through and show how this might alter or change what funding is currently being received?
Sure. I have not done that yet, and there is a very specific reason. So if you look at that very first course, just using that as an example, Highland Community College has a project management course. We're going to reassign it from, or per the recommendation, recommending to reassign it from project management over to office tech. All things being equal, my assumption is that that course would then receive the office tech program rate, but I haven't reviewed all the other courses in the office tech bucket yet. So I would hesitate to say those rates. And we're in the process right now, actually, of getting the data from the Johnson County Cost and Productivity Study for instructor rates. The extraordinary rates that were already approved by the TEA have been shared with DRP. So once we do this, we're actually, I think, moving forward very quickly on getting rates calculated this year. But I hope that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, because we are very supportive of this initiative. Just again, the concern is the very basic pragmatic one. Just don't know what those fiscal impacts are going to look like.
Well, the uncertainty certainly can be concerning. And, but I think it's wise also not to rush to assumptions, because we often are wrong. And all we do is create chaos, quite frankly. And it's a little heartburn too, maybe, but I think we're on a good path. It's nice, and I appreciate the community colleges and tech colleges, lending their blessing on the process. And we'll wait and continue in the process and see what the outcome is as we go forward. But it's a tremendous amount of data. Good grief. Jim, you're gonna live long enough to get across.
75 years.
We're gonna get through this year, so that's all the longer you gotta hang on.
All right, well, good. So, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
No, I would just ask that I think Charmin is being ambitious to say that the remaining 60% will be done. If you didn't know, we have about 700 buckets and hundreds of thousands of courses. Each course has to be looked at individually. So this is a very manual process. So ambitious. If we're a tad late, give us some grace.
Setting the bar high.
We're aiming high.
Deborah.
So the recommendation is to reassign the attached courses here.
That's right.
Okay. I heard Seth say there was support for that, but we are doing that without understanding and the cost or impact.
That is correct. So every program in the system has a rate created for it. We talk a lot about instructor rates, the extraordinary costs. So the program itself has a rate that's made up of those 4 cost model components. And the theory then is that every course within that program gets that rate. So we can tell what the academic year 2023 program rates were for welding, for office tech, for, name your program. We assume that the courses are going to calculate at the rate of that program. My only hesitation in saying more than that is I haven't looked at all the other courses that are already in that program bucket just yet to make sure that all of those courses really are part of that program itself. But we do have a robust funding reporting structure in KEDS, where once we calculate the AY 2024 rates, we'll be able to see what the course rates are for each one of these buckets.
And Member McColga, I would direct you to page 31 and 32. The probably easiest way to understand this in terms of buckets, if you look at clinicals, if you just look at clinicals and then look at the courses, you have radiology clinicals, you have nursing clinicals, you have surge tech clinicals. All of those have been lumped together and are getting an average, regardless of the program they belong to. So now we will take it back out. Surgery clinical will belong with surgery and get the surgery rate. Nursing clinical will be pulled out of a giant bucket and moved to nursing. So they will get a more true rate for where the course actually belongs.
And there will certainly be instances of rates perhaps decreasing and rates increasing as well. But to answer your question, no, you're right. We do not know the exact fiscal impact yet. That is true.
Just find it interesting or generally have an idea of the fiscal impact before we vote.
So if you take the clinical example, right now, all clinicals are grouped into one bucket. So the average, basically that's what you're getting is the average. As we pull them apart and put them in nursing or in the appropriate buckets, those rates are going to either go up or go down based on the cost of the program itself. So yeah, it's hard to predict until we pull it apart, put them in the buckets they belong to, and then redo the math on those buckets with the courses that actually belong in those programs.
Seth?
Thank you. I do think it's important to keep in mind, though, the tiered funding model is currently going to be underfunded. So depending upon how some of these impacts go, I do think it's very logical that there will be some ups and some downs, but we probably will be operating on a net deficit already on that. So I do think there is some fiscal impacts there to consider. And President Jeanette and I had talked, he said as long as Colby got Manhattan's money, he was fine with it. So I think we'll work that out.
Yeah.
And when we see the fiscal impact, I mean, that's another chance for this body to analyze that. Like when we went through recentering, we looked at ways, well, some institutions were going to lose that was phased in so they didn't feel the pain all at once. We'll have some of those options when we know the impact. But much like recentering, this is getting the system, the process where it needs to be, where it's fair to everybody.
I agree. Any other questions? Okay, we need to take action.
Yes, please.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve moving courses to new buckets as presented in Sharman's presentation?
I'll make it.
David? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, Robin, we're going to ask you to call roll again.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much, Harmon. Okay, we're going to move on our agenda into other matters, and we want to welcome Dr. Amy Garcia.
Yes.
There you are. I was looking for you over there. And from the Kansas Nursing Workforce Center. So, and we're going to hear a discussion on nursing in Kansas report. So welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Delighted to be here. I'm proud to be here as a graduate of Hutchinson Community College in Wichita State. and now serve as an associate dean at the University of Kansas. So you have in front of you a State of Nursing in Kansas report. If you don't, raise your hand and Teresa will bring you one. This report was born about 1.5 years ago when I was trying to write an application to the Department of Labor and couldn't find data that made sense for me. The Board of Nursing had a set of numbers, Labor had a set of numbers. The news was all over the place with shortages. So we decided to create a workforce center as they exist now in 44 other states. Kansas had been an outlier in that regard. We did listening sessions across the state, and the #1 request was get us better data about what's actually happening in nursing so that we have good decision support. What I want to do is walk through the report, call out some highlights. I'd like to do this as a conversation. So if you have questions, please wave at me or ask, and we'll have some time at the end that you can ask questions also. I usually like to start a discussion about nursing with level setting. So I have a pair of slides right up behind you or over to the side is a stair step that lays out what does the word nurse mean here in Kansas? Because we've got all kinds of nurses. So in this stair step, we lay out the education, increasing levels of education against what we call scope of practice. So nursing is the largest healthcare occupation. Almost 3% of adults in Kansas hold some kind of nursing license. Our scope of practice is regulated by the Board of Nursing and at entry level by KDADs with the CNAs. We do have multi-state licensure available. There may be a question or two about how that works. And I would call out that you can step into nursing at any point along the way. Most of us that practice have taken most of these steps. It is good to start as a CNA, get an idea of what's happening, obtain your license, and then continue a lifelong journey of nursing that leads you into teaching, research, or advanced practice. On the next slide, I've laid in the SOC codes for those jobs because what I want to call out to you is that pretty much the median wage rises with scope of education, except when it comes to nurse faculty. So you can graduate from a LPN program, come out about $55,000 a year. From a RN program, around 78 or so a year. To be an educator in Kansas requires a master's degree in nursing, but it's about $1,000 more. All of the educators that I know take less pay than we can make in practice. And that's why the work you just voted on is pretty darn important. So I will assume that if you've got questions, you will ask me, but I'm going to ask you to open up your reports. The Kansas Nursing Workforce Center is based at the University of Kansas. It was approved by our chancellor under the idea that it's not okay to make decisions about nursing without good, solid information. So we've got the history of the group here on page 3. And then the question that the media always ask me, Amy, how many nurses are there? On page 5 is a high-level infographic. We have steadily increased the number of RNs and LPNs in the state of Kansas over a period of years. The problem is we've increased the demand outpacing the supply. So we get shortages. Those shortages have come and gone over the years. I think they are coming on strong because the last chart in this book on page on page 69 shows the 10-year decline in nursing school enrollment in Kansas. This chart keeps me up at night. We can break that out. I think we need to do similar kind of work related to the state of nursing education in Kansas. Let's talk about nursing. Our nurses are not as diverse as our population, but LPNs are more diverse than RNs. CNAs are more diverse than LPNs. If we want to increase diversity in nursing, we need to start with the technical programs, promote LPNs, and allow people to work their way into nursing. Our average age of, our median age for nurses is 50. We've got some information in here on retirement. But if you flip over to page 10, you'll see RN license counts by county. The number of nurses licensed in Kansas will always exceed the number of nurses practicing. Nurses hold our licenses until we're, well, I don't know, Jim, until you're 150? Yeah. Yep. What I think is more important is 2 pages later on page 13, and that is the number of nursing licenses per 1,000 population by county. You will see that we have some real deserts across Kansas, particularly in the west, the area around Manhattan. We've got a decrease in the number of nurses that we need to provide safe and effective care. I think we also see the problem with low numbers of nurses per 1,000 population with our critical access hospitals that are bringing in nurses from out of state at very high contract wages. I think the lack of nurses to work in those roles impacts the viability of healthcare in Kansas. I'll continue on and call out on page 19. We've got information here, a whole set of tables, 30 pages of tables taken from the National Council of State Boards of Nursing sample survey. In Kansas, the highest level of nursing education is consistently a baccalaureate. The first step into nursing education is technical or associate degree. And those first enrollments are absolutely critical. So if you have questions, please do ask. I would call you to, yes.
Maybe ahead of you. I'm really interested in the relationship between locations, counties that have technical and community colleges, and the rate or percentage of individuals located on those counties. My guess, if I were guessing, or I'm not looking at the 4 years. I'm just looking because I think I believe community and technical colleges make a huge difference in the state.
So do I.
And I would bet if there's any research, we would find there's aggregate numbers in those surrounding those community and technical college physical locations or program offerings. And it's just a question it doesn't have to be answered now. You may not have that, but boy, I'd love to see that data.
So on page 13, where we have the counts per 1,000, and then back on page 68, where we have a map of the colleges. There is some association. There are some areas where, particularly near the borders, where like Colorado pays more than Kansas pays. Many of Omaha, Springfield, we see higher wages in those geographic areas. So while there may be a school there, we may need to strengthen those schools. And I would see this work as a way to make decisions about investing in strengthening those nursing education programs. Did I answer your question? We are doing geospatial analysis. I don't have it with me.
No, that's really interesting. And the other part of that is then how do we address shortages in areas? And how do we help the community and technical colleges as well as perhaps higher ed if they want, but community and technical colleges are ones I'm looking at now. How do we get their programs out to areas that are underserved?
So faculty is a long-standing issue for community and technical colleges. The pay has got to come up to practice levels. That's step one. Step two, I think there needs to be work done on awareness of nursing as a career. When I came into nursing, we became nurses or teachers. So gosh, I became both. People today have so many opportunities to do so many things. I think we have much to do to talk about what those career paths look like. Yes.
I'll stop after this. If we don't stop the declining rate, that's the declining rate with the number in the population and particularly aging and looking at retirements. As you know, if we don't address that and we look at it from so this board from the leadership model, we don't look at that. We don't have a sustainable model here for our state.
That's correct.
To me, it's not, it's going to get critical. You know,
So among our peer nursing workforce centers, North Carolina, California, Washington have built supply and demand modeling. I would like to build interactive supply and demand modeling to understand the investment, let's say in a community college, let's say Garden City or Colby. Colby would be, yeah. So if we know that Finney County has 14 nurses per 1,000 population, that's not enough. So if we were to invest in faculty, invest in sim labs, invest in increasing the size, how many graduate? Can we decrease the attrition? And how many stay in the community? I think there's research to be done. Haven't had the bandwidth or the funding to do that, but I do believe that we can use research to make better decisions about how to invest.
Dr. Garcia, I did have a question as well.
Yes.
So in looking at the map, the counties in Nebraska, Colorado, probably Oklahoma are also rural communities. So is the reimbursement rates from those states higher? Does that attribute to higher wages?
So the cost of living, median salaries aren't that different. The actual dollars are. We've done some mapping that we didn't publish here because I don't think we understood it well enough. But the counties along our borders, Omaha, Springfield, Kansas City area, bleed. So we built ratios of the number of nurses per 1,000 against the jobs listed by the Department of Labor for that SOC code. And we can see counties that have or make the nurses they need, counties that are importing nurses and counties that are exporting. So Johnson County exports nurses. Wyandotte County is the biggest importer of nurses in the state. Along the borders, we see those counties exporting nurses. We assume they're going to Nebraska, Missouri. The workforce center that I lead, we formed a partnership with the University of Nebraska Medical Center on a HRSA grant to better understand preceptors, which is a piece of the education. But I think research will show us trends that are actionable. We just need to
I would
into the
just
data.
assume the Medicaid reimbursement rate probably plays into that a little bit.
I would assume. I know that our major employers in the small communities, the critical access hospitals, are struggling. And more so than in states that have not raised that
So
rate.
it's just another problem with nursing in Kansas that is beyond education, but it is the Medicaid rate.
Yeah.
Is an issue.
And we talk a lot about nursing in hospitals. If you turn over to page 22, 23, you'll see that right now, when this sample was taken, it's a sample of 1,200 nurses, when this sample was taken, 55% were working in hospitals. 45% don't. They work in clinics and schools and businesses and the many, many roles that are open to people with nursing degrees. There's also something in the media. They say, people are leaving nursing. We've got a shortage because, gosh, nurses won't work. That's not true. 84% of licensed nurses in Kansas work in nursing. Yeah, wow is right. And they work hard. Our nurses in Kansas work more hours than median for other states. I think the demand is outpacing supply, particularly based on enrollment. So I wanted to pull out that 84%. One of the things that is actionable, I thought it was an error on page 23. Only about 3 or 4%, 3.8% or so of Kansas nurses listed themselves as unemployed. But among those that did, 72% of them said they were unemployed because of childcare or dependent care obligations. That's actionable to me with childcare and dependent care support, particularly in our rural areas. I have asked our Board of Nursing for access to more actual data so that we can have zip codes and understand these trends at a regional level. I don't have that at this time, but aspirational, we're aspirational. I would call out page 29, COVID impact on nursing. There's a lot of thought that, well, we had shortages of nursing in Kansas because they all went to New York or California. And at the height of COVID, that sat at about 6.3%. I think it's about 4.4% right now. And I do believe that, well, it's highly profitable to travel. I traveled 40 years ago. I went off to an Indian reservation and had dialysis treatments. I traveled for a while and came home. Most nurses do. I think we shouldn't get too worried about that. I think if we make a good work environment, a good ability to pursue your education and career, we will keep nurses. There's another 15 pages of the exact same information specific to LPNs. I would call out two differences. Nurses, RNs primarily work in hospitals. LPNs, 37% or so work in long-term care. And The one area of nursing that has not recovered since COVID is long-term care. And I'm very, very concerned. We are working, I've got graduate students working on a similar kind of report on the state of long-term care nursing in Kansas, because we should all be worried about that. I'll live to 152, but maybe. I would call out, there's some information, our friends at the Department of Labor, absolutely wonderful to work with. And while we can't list median salary for all counties because the counts are so low in those counties, we can by regions. And so there's some information here for about 4 pages on median salaries, including the adjusted cost of living compared to our surrounding states. We have mapped nursing in quite a bit more detail because we are so concerned about our border areas. But that's another conversation. On page 58, you'll see some information from the Hospital Association about vacancies. The Department of Labor considers nursing, CNA, LPN, and RN. These are bright outlook. These are high growth areas. I included a couple of maps on pages 60 and 61 showing care deserts for long-term care in Kansas. That is a nursing issue. There is a tendency when we have shortage of nurses. I led the American Nurses Association for a number of years. There's a tendency everywhere to dumb down the requirements to be a nurse. Oh, we'll make it shorter. We'll make it easier. That's not a good answer. That's not who you want taking care of your mom or your child. So the map here on contract nursing care costs should concern us. You ask me in 6 months, I'll have more information about that. There's a map in here of the multi-state nursing licenses. Kansas is a part of our compact across the United States, making it easier to come to Kansas and practice. And finally, I will close with the map. And I really appreciated your questions about how well the map corresponds with the number of nurses per 1,000. I have a data scientist who's looking really hard at that, but I think you're very correct in your need to support community colleges and technical colleges where we stand. I stand for questions. I can talk all day about this.
We love your passion.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Natalie?
So the slide that you had up that had the multiple entry and exit points, patient care tech was on the first step.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how that transitions to the next step?
Sure. So there, personal care aide, patient care tech, direct service worker, there's about 15 titles. There are several job categories. We who lead nursing really believe that our best employees start in those entry-level roles. They come into nursing knowing why they're there and what they want to do. There's always an issue when you make entry-level wage on being able to support your home and go to school. I think anything we can do scholarship-wise is good. We've spent some time mapping career paths. I have a grant right now with the School of Social Work with the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services to map career paths into direct service work and on beyond. I personally think, and this is 8 months before the report's due, but I think a great step is from entry level to licensed practical nurse. You go to a $55,000 median wage, that lifts a family. That is doable. It's a 1-year program. I worry, we didn't put charts in here about enrollment there, but I think there's much to be done. So did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. We've had people contact us about the patient care tech certification
Yes.
and at the high school level and how that differs from the CNA
Mhm.
and where it fits in the progression. So
I can talk for hours about that if you're interested. So I'm happy to follow up with you. Yes. Any other questions?
Dr. Garcia, I do have one quick question.
Yes.
Pardon me. In discussions about costs with the community and technical colleges, one of the things that they brought up is how challenging it can be to find clinical space because there's not enough staff already, then trying to actually increase our training numbers. So for clinicals specifically, is because that's kind of maybe a bit of a bottleneck, maybe.
It is.
Did you find anything in your research, perhaps actionable that we could talk about taking on or trying to impact?
So I think there are good question. Your question was, what in the world do we do about clinical sites? Yeah. So, and one of the reasons that there's a shortage of clinical sites is that when I went into nursing, if you had a baby, you stayed in the hospital for a week. If you had your gallbladder out, you stayed 2. Now it's a 24-hour stay. So patients aren't there long enough. And the business of healthcare has really tightened up. I think there's much to be done in building academic practice partnerships. One of the projects of the Workforce Center over this next couple of years will be building models for how to strengthen the relationship between academia and practice. So we want practice to believe that our graduates come ready. We want practice to provide the clinical sites. Research says that up to 50% of clinical time can be done in simulation labs. I don't know that that's less expensive because to do simulation correctly, there's a tremendous amount of debrief. So I think we address the problem from local relationships, from strengthening faculty numbers. There's models. I've been pulling models out of other states that during COVID, health systems helped pay parts of salaries. I don't know if that's sustainable. I think there's not one easy answer. But when we can do things like Fort Hays State building a big seminary, that's wonderful. So let's build the relationships with the providers. Let's use those labs, those areas to not only prepare at entry level, but to do career-long interprofessional training so that our graduates can come out and work. Yes. Did I? Yes. I think
just
there's
know
work
that
to be done on that.
It creates an interesting discussion because if a community college were able to take on some more students, but then they're not able to get them through the clinical, so you still have your same situation. It's just that you've kind of shifted it a little bit. So
So I think clinicals can run 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Weekends, I think there are things to do to stretch that. I also like the idea with RN programs, that there's a capstone of sorts. So the last semester or the last numbers of weeks, you actually go there and learn in depth about what you're doing. We're looking at opening at the University of Kansas, opening 19 of our units to do capstone work. But
And I know that we have talked before, years ago, hospitals had their own training. They trained their own nurses, and we could get to a tipping point where that happens again. How open is nursing to apprenticeships for individuals who cannot stop work to go to school?
so most nursing students work while they're in school. Even in universities with very privileged students, most nursing students do work when they go to school. Apprenticeships sound easier than they are for one reason. The education of a nurse is a generalist education. So when you go to an LPN or an RN program, you're prepared to work with elders and babies and mothers and occupation and. So the idea of an apprenticeship is hard, except maybe at the capstone level. We are talking in depth with how this is dealt with across the country. But it really comes down to understanding the general. I think apprenticeships can work better for advanced degrees. So you've become a registered nurse. Let's apprenticeship into a faculty role, if you will.
And I'm assuming that's because once you are a nurse and you're maybe at a hospital, you're working on the cardiac floor or peds or, okay. All right, makes sense.
And you would specialize then and have the concentrated time that a good apprenticeship program would take. Yeah. So your
Doctor,
comment about
I'm sorry.
hospitals doing the training, that was the standard for 75 years here in the US. But if you go to a hospital program that is not associated with a university or a college or a technical school, you end up with that doesn't translate. Yeah. So I don't think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, a comment and then a couple questions. One, we're excited that we're launching in Kansas the apprenticeship program for registered nurses. Shonda will probably ping on that in the next presentation. So my other question, and Seth and Jim, this may be you two also. You know, obviously, healthcare is one of the highest demand occupations as a sector in Kansas. I feel like it's a combination of not being able to train as many due to regulations at our community and tech colleges, that programs may be capped, that they can only do so many at a time or each class. And then maybe the other aspect is because of that, should we be opening more programs or should we be expanding enrollment numbers within those? I think it's a quantity versus quality type of scenario.
And I'll weigh in for quality always. Our board of nursing that has to approve those, they have one job. Their job is the safety of the public. So when you come to the board of nursing and say, I would like to increase my class size, they'll say, okay, how are you going to do it? How are you going to have the clinical experience, the time, the faculty? Because
How easy is that process?
it's not very, but I, I worked with boards of nursing all over the country. I think ours does a pretty good job. In
Balancing that.
finding that balance between the safety of the public. Yeah, making sure that our schools are equipped with the sim labs and that they can actually find the faculty they need. The Kansas Promise Act has been a good thing. Work towards scholarships is a good thing. I'd love to sit and debate it with you. And I'm so excited to
have an answer, but
yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to see what the apprenticeship program holds.
Yep.
It's easier in some areas of nursing. That pre-licensure level is tough to do a full apprenticeship. It can be done. It is done elsewhere.
Yep.
Yep.
Dr. Garcia, thank you so much for this, bringing this awareness to, the table. Nursing now is a calling, in my opinion. And thank God for those that answer that call and are willing to continue in that career and that path. We just wished in some ways that first step, particularly CNAs, high demand, low wage. How can we better improve that as a first step? Because you hope that that doesn't become someone that, just doesn't feel they can take the
Yeah.
next step.
I don't think we should shorten. It's 90 hours to be a CMA or a CNA in Kansas. I don't think we should shorten that training at all. I do think there's work environment things to be done. I think in many states, the CNAs can have their clinical experiences, not just in long-term care, but in other settings.
Well,
So-
bless the hearts of those CNAs, because my experience with long-term care or care homes, they can't operate without it.
That's right. 90% of the work is done.
It's not glamorous work,
Mhm.
certainly heartfelt by the CNAs. Thank
Very
you. And,
Anytime,
we'll look forward to another time.
I'd look
Right.
forward to that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on and call on Donda Anderson. And for Director of Apprenticeships and Internships. How about that? Kind of a good segue into our next topic. Talking about apprenticeships. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the authority for having me and for Chairman for having me come and give you an update on what we're doing with the Kansas Office of Registered Apprenticeship. I think you're going to be very pleased from the last time I came and presented, which was 2 years ago, I believe. So this is exciting, and a huge thank you to the K-Board team. I work with April and Charmaine quite a bit. We've done a lot of trainings for community colleges and tech colleges across the state, and things are definitely progressing forward. So I guess I control this. Just as a quick reminder, registered apprenticeship is not anything new. When you wanted to become a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, in the 1700s, you went through a registered apprenticeship program, an apprenticeship program. In 1939, under the Fitzgerald Act, that's when registered apprenticeship became part of federal law. So that's 29 CFR 29 and 30. So an apprenticeship is not just an apprenticeship. You don't get to just make an apprenticeship. There are actual federal and state laws that we have to adhere to develop out what these look like. In 2002, Governor Kelly officially established us as an Office of Apprenticeship. We've always been here. We've just never had office status. And that office status also allows us to be a line item in the state budget, which has been really extremely helpful. We do expect that federal reauthorization will happen at some point. They're talking that at the federal level, there's anywhere between one in $4.2 billion that will likely be invested in the registered apprenticeship space. It's already happening through the Inflation Reduction Act funding, CHIPS funding. We're seeing grants come out of Department of Health and Human Services for healthcare and registered nursing, registered apprenticeship programs, Department of Education, Department of Labor. There's a lot happening in this space. So my job is really to ensure that Kansas is fully fledged and ready to move forward. This is my team, which has been a real great thing for the state of Kansas. We've got a team of 6 or 7. We're growing constantly. Some of these are on state budgets, others are on federal budgets. But as of right now, this team really is growing forward. And I believe really making sure that we're meeting the needs of business and industry across the state. We also do adhere to a Kansas Apprenticeship Council. This is in the state law books. We are required to have a council of 9 people. Half are on the labor side, so union side. The other half are on the management or industry side. You'll notice we have more than 9 people. We have 13 people. I'm very proud of what this council makeup looks like. It looks much more like the state of Kansas. We have folks from across the entire state. We're a very diverse industry. We've got folks from community colleges and universities on the board. We've got folks from K-12, from our workforce boards, healthcare, et cetera. So this council is considered a regulatory council, which means that all registered apprenticeship programs that ask for registration in the state of Kansas is submitted to the council, reviewed, and subsequently approved by them before they're actually entered into the system. To date, the council has reviewed almost 182 programs over the last 2 years. They've approved about 98% of them. And so we're really robustly moving forward. And I can, if you have questions while we're talking, please ask. Our vision and mission statement is to grow Kansas apprenticeship to a top 25 state by 2025. Keep that number in mind as I walk through the rest of the presentation. Our mission statement is to meet the needs of the Kansas economy and its citizens. The Office of Apprenticeship will actively grow a robust system that supports our apprenticeship stakeholders, sponsors, intermediaries, and apprentices. We do this by strategically empowering partnerships that serve a diverse and inclusive workforce through occupational proficiency for generations to come. This is important because we recognize that we are rebuilding the airplane as we're flying it down the runway. So we need to make sure that everyone's on the same airplane. And so this vision and mission statement is something that's really imperative that the council, my staff, and the total stakeholder ecosystem with registered apprenticeship, they're really bought into, which is wonderful. In terms of the target sectors that we're focused on, we align directly with the Kansas Framework for Growth. So as a reminder, the Kansas Office of Registered Apprenticeship is housed within the Kansas Department of Commerce. So I report directly to Assistant Secretary Mike Bean, but also work directly with the Economic Development Agency. I work directly with the Kansas Board of Regents. I work with Kansas Nursing Board, all the different departments and agencies across the entire state. But from a objective standpoint, we're really focused on those target sector areas that are seeing significant growth across the state. We've had about a $20.8 billion investment, private investments funding in the state in terms of economic development. And so really ensuring that we are growing registered apprenticeship programs in advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, transformative technologies, those target sector areas, but also focusing on other priority areas, childcare, healthcare, teaching, workforce development, broadband, all of those things are important. And you're going to see our chart looks like what we need it to look for the state of Kansas, which I'm very proud of. As a reminder, again, a registered apprenticeship program is not just, I'm going to apprentice someone. It has to meet certain benchmarks and it has to align with federal law 29 CFR 29 and 30. So at a very bare minimum, it has to be employer designed and driven, which means we have to have an employer on board to have an apprenticeship program. An apprenticeship program is not a training system to get a job. Let me say that again. A registered apprenticeship program is not a training system, a training program to get a job. It is actually a job day one. By law, it is required to be a W-2 paid position day one of the program, which means that the structured on-the-job training that's happening while that student or apprentice is out on the job is going to count towards their education. We also have the job-related instruction that's engaged with that, which we're working closely with the Kansas Board of Regents to see what that looks like. That can include community college, technical college training, university training, industry-related technical instruction, K-12 training. It's very versed as to what that can look like. There also is wage progression. That is a requirement with registered apprenticeship. This is something that the employer designs and drives. There's also a requirement to have a mentorship component with registered apprenticeship, and then ultimately the valued credentials. The valued credentials are really whatever that industry or licensing needs to have. At the very least, a registered apprentice is going to get a completion certificate, which the state of Kansas is a loan in this, which we're very proud of. But the governor, the lieutenant governor, and myself would actually sign that completion certificate. So that's kind of a cool thing in our hat. The apprenticeship system is really for anyone and everyone. I liken it to a quiver. You know, if you have a bow and arrow hunter, they have a quiver that they keep all the arrows in. It's really dependent on what arrow you need. Registered apprenticeship can be designed for that. So businesses in need of sustainable profits, skilled needs, hard to fill positions, profit and loss that needs to be in the black, or maybe they have a significant community need that they're trying to meet. It can be built for rural or urban. It's also for people ready to work. So we can develop registered apprenticeships and have apprenticeship programs specifically for justice-involved individuals, people with disabilities, K-12 youth-based workers, and I've got exciting updates on that, displaced workers, diversity workers. It can be for rural workers. It can be for nearly every industry that's out there. So, questions so far? All right. The Kansas Office of Registered Apprenticeship, when I came into this role, I was told it's got to be easier, it's got to be turnkey in order to make this thing grow. And so we heard that, we understood that. That's why we've redeveloped our process, the website, all the things. And we've really worked hard on emphasizing and investing in intermediaries, so people who can stand up registered apprenticeship programs themselves. We have several community college and technical colleges that are apprenticeship intermediaries. We have organizations that are apprenticeship intermediaries, unions. We have a couple of economic development boards that are apprenticeship intermediaries. Anything to make it as easy as possible for the business to develop their programming. We can also work directly with the business where they're the program sponsor themselves. But this again is not just a, hey, we're going to start an apprenticeship. There is a legal process that you go through to develop it out. Ultimately, if we've got a business and industry that's ready to roll, we can get one stood up in under 2 weeks. You all did a wonderful thing a couple years ago, and we're continuing to work on growing it, which is really integrating the Kansas Board of Regents Technical Education Authority process with registered apprenticeships. So basically that means that any community college or technical college can develop a totally customized certificate or associate's degree utilizing existing curriculum and get it blanket approval for a new associates or certificate. So that means a company like Advent Health can say, hey, I'd like a pre-licensure registered nurse apprenticeship program, but I need this class and this class, and then we need these class for the licensure. They can take it to Washburn Tech or to Johnson County Community College or whatever community college and say, this is what we want. The community college can develop it, grow it, send it over to the TEA and get it approved as a special certificate or a special associate's degree, if that makes any sense. It also allows community colleges and technical colleges to work directly with unions that have established registered apprenticeship programs. We're still working to kind of grow this out, but we have a lot of union members that have gone through a 4-year carpentry apprenticeship or a 4-year electrical apprenticeship program or ironworking apprenticeship program that could have access. They can take that to a community college or tech college, reduce the number of classes they need to take in order to graduate with an associate's degree. This is really powerful, cutting edge stuff, and it's great that Kansas is on the front end of that. And I continue to ask you to support that. We're also working directly with our workforce boards across the state. We now have subject matter experts, SMEs, in registered apprenticeship at each one of our local workforce boards. So they've come to our champion trainings. They understand the process. Several workforce boards are now intermediaries themselves, so they're helping businesses stand these up and working with the community colleges and the technical college community to make sure that the training is there as well. I also understand the need and the requirement for return on investment data. Data is everything. And so we are working with Institute for Public and Social Research at the University of Kansas. We've seen some preliminary results from a employer study, return on investment study. We hope to have that published and ready to share at the end of this year, probably first of next year. But right now, very preliminarily, our results meet, match, or exceed that of nationwide results. So return on investment for a registered apprenticeship nationwide for a business is $1.50 for every dollar invested on average. For the state of Kansas, we're seeing higher results than that. But again, I'm not going to share too much because the results are not published, but they are coming. We've also got a Grant and Tax Act. We're working hard to deploy this across the state of Kansas as well. We've got several businesses, companies, for-profit companies that are tapping into this. We've got the grant side, which is specific to nonprofits and very specifically to healthcare. We are providing grants to a lot of long-term care facilities and to hospitals and things like that across the state. We haven't quite tapped into the teacher educator reimbursement side, but we've got some options and some ideas on how to make that happen. And I've got some exciting updates in our teacher educator apprenticeship program. Also, and this is huge, and thanks to several folks that have been a part of this Kansas Youth Apprenticeship Collaborative. Natalie is one of them, as well as several other folks across the state. We've defined what youth registered apprenticeship means for the state of Kansas. That means a paid employment and training opportunity that starts as early as 16 years of age. And Charmaine passed out a document. Can I see this really fast? Thank you. We've worked really hard with the governor's office as well to provide some context around what this means. And we've worked directly with the Kansas Department of Insurance. And you have in front of you a letter that definitively says it is perfectly legal. It is perfectly legal to hire a 16 and 17-year-old in certain hazardous occupations. So it is perfectly legal to hire a 16 or 17-year-old, pay them a wage, provide them workers' comp insurance, and not have your premium rates be hit. This is huge. There's only about 3 or 4 letters like this across the nation. But this opens up huge opportunities for K-12, dual credit opportunities with community colleges and technical colleges. It opens up opportunity for construction and manufacturing specifically. This letter is posted on our website, and I do suggest printing it off and handing it off to people. But no longer can a insurance company say, nope, it is illegal to hire someone 16 or 17-year-old to bring them into the shop floor or whatever. This letter allows the business to go to their insurance agent and say, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation about this. Kansas actually follows federal child labor laws. So this letter is a pretty big deal. In terms of the numbers, we watch our data very closely. We have about 4,500 Kansas residents that are active in a registered apprenticeship program. That means they might be registered in another state, but they're still a Kansas resident. We still support and track them. About 2,800 of those are registered and associated with the Kansas Apprenticeship Council. We've got several funding initiatives. We've had several years where we've got about $1 million from the state We're leveraging that lots of different ways. We're providing direct grants to some of these apprenticeship programs. I'm paying for staffing, the ROI study, things like that. We've got the 13 million in tax and grant incentives. We have a $6 million US DOL grant. Half of that's going to the local workforce boards. The other half is going to the Kansas State Department of Education to launch and grow pre-licensure registered teacher apprenticeship programs. This means that teachers that are going through this, typically our paraeducators, will have a chance to go through a registered teacher educator apprenticeship program and not have to do a single hour of unpaid student teaching. Not one single hour of unpaid student teaching, because all of their time in the classroom is counting towards those credit hours. We also will be closing out our SAEEI funding around 5 million, and we've blown past our goals, which is really exciting in that space. This is really hard to read, and I apologize, but basically what this says is that in 2020, I came on in 2021, we were about 47th in the nation in new registered apprenticeship numbers behind Guam and federal funding. We're now 29th. Remember, I said keep that top 25 by 2025 in mind. So we are definitely headed in the right direction. We've had almost a 50% increase in new registered apprenticeship numbers. We've had a 30% increase in completers. Right now, our data is showing around 50% of our apprentices that enter an apprenticeship program complete an apprenticeship program, which is really phenomenal. In terms of the business types, about 63% are for-profit businesses. We've got about 40% are in the healthcare space, 12% in nonprofit, and then that education piece is about 9% of our total employer numbers. And then in terms of where we are at industry-wise, so about 44% are in the construction space, which makes sense. This is where our unions sit and continue to thrive and grow. The energy and natural resources, those are our linemen. So Sunflower Energy, Midwest Energy, Evergy, those folks. Advanced manufacturing is definitely an area of opportunity for us to grow. We're working very closely with a lot of the economic development projects that are coming in, the Panasonics of the world, the CHIPS Act funding pieces, things like that. But this is still an area where we can grow. Again, our teacher education apprenticeship, we have 102 teacher educator apprentices. Again, all of them are W-2 paid employees. They have health insurance, 401k, their education is getting paid for, and they don't have to do a single hour of unpaid student teaching. We're also growing significantly in the healthcare space. Our healthcare apprenticeship numbers were like in the 1-2% a few years ago. We're at about 8% now. We have huge number of CNA, CMA registered apprenticeship programs. Again, all of these folks that are going through this are paid, and their experience is counting towards their education. We have a pre-licensure registered nurse apprenticeship program that we already have apprentices in, and in working very closely with the Kansas Board of Nursing and our Kansas Apprenticeship Council, we now have a pre-licensure registered apprenticeship program. That means that all of their clinical work is going to be paid for. Their education is going to be paid for by the hospital, the long-term care facility that they're working for. It's really exciting, cutting edge stuff. And we have other states across the nation that we're working very closely with to mimic what they're doing. IT is an area of opportunity. We're growing in the ag space. This pie chart looks far more diverse than it did before, which is really, really a phenomenal thing. Questions so far? Okay. Here's our heat map. Again, I am so proud of this image because before we had lots of open space in Western Kansas. That's finally kind of turning a corner, which is really phenomenal. But we're definitely, this just gives you an idea of where we're tracking. I heard a little bit about how to attract diversity and increase access for inclusion in different populations and to different opportunities. Registered apprenticeship is a clear option or tool to help make that happen. Almost all of our diversity numbers have increased year over year, which is phenomenal. I'm most proud of our female numbers, 73% increase in female numbers. We went from like 4% to almost 12% females into our registered apprenticeship opportunities, which is great. You can kind of look at the race and education, ethnicity. I think you have a copy of the PowerPoint. Again, there are significant federal funding initiatives that we're already starting to see come into the state of Kansas. The bipartisan infrastructure law, the CHIPS Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. Contractors that are on these different projects have a requirement to have a certain number of registered apprentices out on the job. If they do, they get significant tax incentives. If they don't, some of them will get fined. So we're starting to work more and more in this space to help with those contractors, make sure they have the connections that we've built to help establish and grow registered apprenticeship opportunities across the state. We also, again, like I mentioned, expect to see additional federal grants come out of lots of other departments. If you'd like, we'd love to have you on our apprenticeship dinner bell calls. We do continue to do these. They grow all the time. Every month is different. It's the second Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. It's not at dinner. It's just our way of getting people attracted and coming to the dinner bell calls. We heard from the Lieutenant Governor last month. We've heard from Porsche, the car manufacturing company in Germany. We've heard about early childhood education apprenticeships, all kinds of things. So you can take a picture of that QR code and sign up for the call automatically. And I definitely suggest you do. So I'm going to pause and let you all take photos of the QR code. Yes. All right. Come on. I see more cell phones. All right. Nice. All right. With that, I can stand for questions.
Questions, comments? Well, we appreciate the effort and the work that's being done in this area. I'm curious on the letter that was presented.
Yes.
Pretty recent,
Yes.
right? And this is someone's opinion.
The Department of Insurance.
Right, for Kansas.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what, if any, pushback have they received over this opinion? Is it going to be tested in court, do you think?
We've not received any pushback. In fact, I've had glad hands and, thank yous and hugs for finally clarifying our state and federal laws. It's not necessarily an opinion. Kansas follows federal child labor laws. Federal child labor laws have clear exemptions for hazardous occupations if they are in a legitimate registered youth apprenticeship program. So I think that there's always been an opinion to be more risk adverse, which I get, but when we have counties that are at 2.1% unemployment or less, we've got to think differently and out of the box. Our greatest asset, which are our kids and our trained young adults, we are exporting them at alarming rates. So I think that there's opportunity to really think outside the box, think differently, and to find ways to be creative. This letter just helps facilitate that conversation. Ultimately, Chairman, it's what we're saying is that it is not a legal issue. It can be a business decision. The insurance companies, they can say it's a business decision not to allow 16 or 17-year-olds in this manufacturing facility or whatever. They don't get to say it's a legal decision anymore. So we're not saying that they can't or that they shouldn't. We're just saying have the conversation.
Do you have any position on that? You mean, you got a business, you got, maybe in apprenticeships.
Have you heard my chair rattling because I'm squirming in my seat here? I've looked at this a few times. I've got a aviation business down in our Kansas City. when I looked at it, I've looked at it in a way where, let's see if we can do some apprenticeship.
Yep.
See if we can make something like this happen. Couple of thoughts about it. The situation now is, we hire someone right out of high school and we train them. And they spend about 6 months in training and then they're not in training anymore. They're a mechanic and they're doing the job. Seems to work okay, so one of those adages, if it's not broke, why fix it? Why add something to it if I don't really need it? If I think there's some kind of a benefit, a funding benefit where the state's going to kick me a little money if I do this, my experience with those kind of situations are horrible because I've tried to get involved with state programs before and either the hurdles are way too high or it's just so time consuming. It's almost like, forget it. We don't need that. I'm glad they have it. Maybe somebody's taking advantage of it, but for my business and for me, I don't think so.
I get it.
But I still would like to revisit these things and see if there's something that can be done to help the individual out. Maybe get them to another place. I think I've shared with Mike before too. I've got GE very close to me and their requirement is 2 years of experience before they hire anybody. So typically they come out of high school, I give them 2 years of experience and then they go to GE. So
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not in the business of training GE employees, so it's a little painful when that kind of thing happens as well. So giving a kid a shot at an apprenticeship and then to lose them down the road when they get that experience at the bigger companies with the bigger paychecks will offer them.
I get what you're saying, Chairman, and you're not the first one to say that. And you're not the first one to say that in public either. A registered apprenticeship, to enter into a registered apprenticeship for altruistic reasons, to be a good community partner or whatever, you won't succeed. You'll likely fail in the program. To enter into a registered apprenticeship for just the funding, again, you'll likely not succeed. Those that are doing registered apprenticeship, that are seeing that it viscerally meets their workforce needs, are doing it for perfectly selfish reasons. They're doing it because they have specific, very extreme needs to meet a bottom line that they're not otherwise meeting. The ROI study that we're going to have come out is going to speak to a lot of your concerns. It's talking about retention. Federally or nationally, retention numbers are 8 out of 10 apprentices stay on at the company that they apprenticed at 5+ years. The $1.50 for every dollar investment is pretty significant. And then I also ask, sure, what if you train them and they leave, right? That helps elevate all of our skills and workforce across the state. But additionally, what if you don't train them and they stay, right? We're only as good as our least trained employee, right? So I think that yes, I hear you, an apprenticeship's not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. But the mantra that I've had being in this space almost 10 years is no is never a no. It might be no, not right now, but almost always anybody who says no comes back to me in 1.5 years, maybe sooner, and says, hey, can we sit down and rethink this and really try to figure out what this looks like for my business.
I have no problem looking at this again. It sounds beneficial. Sounds like a good idea. I like the justice involved part of it as well. I'm a second chance person myself, so hiring a justice involved person benefits my business a great deal because I can't lose them to GE.
Right.
GE's requirement for employment does not involve justice involved people. So I've even told
Sure.
GE, you get somebody with a problem, you can't hire them for whatever reason you have, send them to me. Give them a job.
Yeah, I think we've seen some really powerful models across the state. We've got programs that are specifically designed for justice involved. We have programs specifically designed for people with disabilities. We have a business in Kansas City that's working with Down Syndrome Innovations. They've come out and said that their profit and loss actually went from red to black because of entering into a registered apprenticeship program We also have programs, quite frankly, that are designed for really high skilled jobs that have high turnover and it's hard to hire people, right? Like healthcare, like manufacturing. So I think it's a matter of entering it with an open mind and really thinking outside the box.
Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate the update on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
A very important program.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on. And hear from Vera.
The key event. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our industry and labor expansion grant that we were able to fund through Perkins funding. And I think you're already familiar with what Perkins does. But I did want to remind you that 85% of the money received by the state, we do have to pass on to our subrecipients. And of that, 15% is set aside for reserve. And this is what we're talking about today is the reserve grant. This particular grant was designed to support industry and labor force expansion in our grant, knowing that many new employers are coming in and needing that high skill worker. So we had our applicants write to a specific new or growing Kansas employer who would benefit from skilled workers in a specific occupation. But I was very specific. They had to name the person they are going to train for. And as you will see, we had 9 institutions receive this grant, and the total was almost $1 million to do different activities, to hire faculty, to purchase industry standard equipment. And I just wanted to point out that it is very rewarding for us to look back. It was a long grant. It was 1.5 years. We were getting nervous. Some of the vendors would, the orders would fall through and we couldn't get this or we couldn't hire. But the work that the institutions do, and I hope you know that we really appreciate your staff and your work of how much they did to make this happen. And for 1.5 years to get engaged, get involved, get these projects completed so that we can help our students learn all of these skills. This project also involved data collection. You will see it in the summaries of each of the projects that each institution collected either survey data and how it helped students to have these new opportunities. They also reported student enrollment, completion, and credentials so that we can see that we are making a difference with these funds and they're not just going out and not getting used. A variety of programs were funded from healthcare to construction, electrical, welding, automotive, automation, veterinary nursing. And I am not going to go over each of the summaries of each grant, but you will see that the partners and the categories and the industries that are involved are just amazing. Hospitals, veterinary hospitals, metal fabrication companies, Panasonic in Kansas City. I was getting a lot of support. I'm so excited. Caterpillar, electricians, and even small companies that still need skilled workers, dealerships, construction companies. And I think this is what it's all about. This is why we do what we do. That's why we spend so much time reviewing these applications, supporting the institutions through the process so that everything is spent appropriately. The federal funding does come with time, and I hear Member Humphrey and saying that the state can be demanding on what we require because we're required by federal law to get any funding from us. But I think we are doing a really great job in these projects, and everyone submitted their final reports. We're looking really good. And with that, let's go have lunch.
Not quite.
Questions.
Just kidding. Okay, you can ask questions. Yeah.
Vera, I'll just say that this has been good because I've been messaging my people, what's going on with that program we signed up for? They're like, nothing. But So we're relooking at some things that we had gotten involved in. So good. Let's see where it goes.
Well, congratulations to the 9. And I'm curious, were those that were denied during this process?
I don't believe that with the reserve grants, we have many that unless they don't follow federal law in a way that they are asking for something that is not allowable with federal law or does not follow the requirements of the grant and the request for proposals. Usually we try to fund as many projects as possible and provide that support for all the projects that come to the table.
Well, it is good to read the partnerships. It makes a huge difference. It's more meaningful to see those kinds of partnerships between institutions. Any other questions or comments? I think she already adjourned the meeting. Yeah, David's.
Elaine sent out yesterday the email on the board's unified budget request, and read clear to the end, there was a supplemental request for tech ed, so I think that's justified, but whoever we need to say thank you to, that's no guarantee we'll get it.
Right.
But at least it was included.
Yeah.
Right, and we can send that out to the community and tech colleges if you didn't receive it, but we are asking to make us whole for last year. So we were underfunded, or we overspent, however you want to say it. So we are asking for the difference. There you go.
Well, and you don't ask if you don't get it. I mean, if you don't ask, you won't get it. So glad that there was that request. All right, just before we adjourn, just a quick reminder, our next meeting, it will be a Zoom meeting, is November 21st. So I hope you all have that already plugged in on your schedules. Again, thank you to all that are here today and the participation. Thank you to all of our TEA members that are here and to Mark that was able to Zoom in and be present that way. So with that said, we are adjourned.